Hi, I'm Katherine Sam. I'm the percussion director at Henry County High School in Paris, Tennessee. I also teach elementary music for grades K through 4 and middle school band. I currently serve as the secretary for the Tennessee Percussive Arts Society Executive Board. Today, I'm going to talk to you about footwork behind the keyboard and why it's important. Footwork behind a keyboard is something that is often overlooked by young musicians, and it can help you feel more confident and competent when you're playing a keyboard instrument, whether it be for an audition or in a band setting. Generally speaking, there's a few things that you can keep in mind when thinking about footwork behind a keyboard. For the most part, you need to stay centered behind the marimba, behind whatever it is that you're playing, whether it be scales or something that takes up a longer range. And we'll talk about those things more specifically later on. You're going to want your feet almost shoulder width apart. Some people prefer for it to be shoulder width apart depending on whatever it is that they're playing, but I generally prefer just a little bit in. It gives me a lot more freedom to take any of the steps that I need to take. For the most part, the method that you're going to use to play behind a marimba is the leaning side to side. It's very simple, very easy. So let's talk about some of the more specific uses of footwork behind the keyboard. Let's talk about footwork while playing scales. It's very common for young musicians to have to play scales for either playing tests or some sort of audition. Now, sometimes you're playing these scales in person, but as we've come to find out, most of us have had to record our scales and submit them in some sort of virtual format. Now, a lot of the mistakes that I see from young musicians while playing scales in their footwork is they want to choose to lean, to move their arms across them like this. This does a couple things. You're no longer centered behind what you're playing, and it gives you more of a chance to hit wrong notes the higher you go. If you're keeping the mallet centered in front of you, you have a much better shot at hitting the correct notes. Now, if we stick with the general things, staying centered behind what you're playing, with your feet almost shoulder width apart, leaning side to side, for a 1-octave scale, this really works well. Watch. Notice how I didn't pick my feet up at all, and all I did was lean side to side. My hands stayed in front of me the whole time, and I had a good sound quality up and down the scale. So, most of the time for your auditions or playing tests, you may be asked to play scales that last for much larger than 1 octave. Typically speaking, an audition will consist of a scale that lasts about 2 octaves. The lean side to side method does not work because you can only lean so far before you have to reach and cross over your body like this again. You want to avoid that at all costs because it affects your sound quality and it can give you less of a shot to hit the correct notes. What I do not recommend doing is crossing your feet. Now, what happens when you cross your feet to play? You no longer feel centered over your feet. It gives you more of a chance to trip over whatever it is you're doing. And to cross back over, you have to move your body in kind of a weird way to get your foot to cross back over. So again, I do not recommend crossing your feet when playing a keyboard instrument. What I do recommend is a little bit of a sidestep. So if I have to play a scale that lasts for 2 octaves, I will start centered behind whatever it is I'm playing, and as I move up, I'll take one small step and scoot that other foot close to it, and then another step, and then back, like this. I'll demonstrate that in just a second. Notice how I'm not really putting my foot down very hard. I'm not stomping. I'm not moving my body forward and backwards. I'm moving in a very horizontal way. Watch. Using the side to side or the sidestep method, whatever you want to call it, gives you a much better chance at getting a good sound quality up and down the scale, and you also don't have to do the weird crossover with any of your arms, no matter which direction you're going. So, the only other scale that might use a longer range would be your chromatic scale. And again, I would just recommend using that sidestep method, like this. Notice how I didn't cross my feet. I didn't make my arms reach over any part of my body. I stayed centered behind what it was I was playing the whole time. That's something that you're going to have to practice, not letting your step give you a little hitch in your sound. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is playing excerpts that may cover much larger than a 2-octave range like your typical scale would. A lot of times when you are in marching band or percussion ensemble, or if you're auditioning for your regional honor band, you're going to have to learn some sort of audition excerpt. And a lot of times we see young musicians learn 4 mallets, and in their audition, they're still not really focused on what their feet are doing. And so there's a couple things you can use when playing excerpts that will help you feel more confident and give you a much better shot at hitting right notes and having a good sound quality and all of that stuff. So you can use the sidestep method like we did with our scales, or you can slide your feet side to side. There's a couple things that you need to consider. Whatever it is you're playing can affect your decision on what method you should choose. And you also don't want to have your foot sounds get in the way of what you're playing, right? You don't want to hear any stomping or any really loud slides. And so I'm going to show you a couple examples of both the sidestep and the slide. Let's talk about the sidestep method when playing something that covers much more than an octave, or you have to move very quickly in between both. So this is an exercise that I use with my students, and I also use it to kind of help work on accuracy with my hands, and it gets me moving quick up and down the board, but also it helps me practice my footwork. So I would recommend setting up over F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and C sharp, and you're just playing a bunch of double verticals. You're going to play 3 in the lower octave, and then you're going to jump up 1 whole octave and play 3 more, like this. So as you can see, that exercise forces you to move your hands quickly, but it also forces your feet to know and understand what they're doing. So like I said, the sidestep method can work for this. So you want to be centered behind what you're playing. You play your 3 hits, and then you step up here, just like that. I'll demonstrate again. The sidestep method works very well for that. The other method I guess you could use would be a slide. I prefer this when playing this exercise. Watch this. Notice how I'm not really picking my feet up at all. I'm just pointing where I need to go and sliding my feet wherever it needs to be. I'm staying centered behind what I'm playing and understanding the direction that I'm traveling. Allow me to demonstrate the whole exercise for you. Notice how while playing, my feet are pointing the direction that I need to go, and I'm using my body weight to kind of help push whatever direction I need to go, whether it be up or down. I'm using the slide because I can slide much faster than I can step. Utilizing the slide method is going to help make you look more confident behind the marimba, no matter what it is you're playing. I would highly recommend practicing an excerpt or creating your own excerpt. Well, that's going to help you understand what it is your feet need to do when playing the keyboard. So remember a few important things when practicing footwork behind a keyboard. You want to stay centered behind whatever it is you're playing, and you want your feet to make you feel confident. You want your feet to be sturdy, relatively shoulder width apart, maybe a little in, depending on whatever it is you're most comfortable with. There's a couple methods that you can use to step behind the keyboard. You can use the sidestep method like this, or you can slide like this. Whatever you do, I would not recommend crossing your feet at all. You want to avoid that if possible because it can affect your sound quality and it makes you feel less centered. Depending upon whatever it is you're playing, whether it be scales or an excerpt that takes up a much longer range than like a 2-octave scale or something like that, whatever you are playing will affect what it is you're doing with your feet. Side step, slide to side, whatever you feel most comfortable doing is what you need to do. How do you figure that out? Well, you're going to need to practice both methods with whatever it is you're playing. And the best tool that you have to understand what it is you look like, record yourself while playing. Make sure that you can see your whole body, not just the top half, right? You want to be able to see what your feet are doing and how it's affecting what you are playing. And lastly, I would really recommend creating a new warm-up to help you work on your hands and your feet together. Your whole body is involved when playing a percussion instrument, and you need to make sure that whatever it is you create is focused on whatever excerpt or whatever scale it is that you have to play. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. Please follow the Tennessee Percussive Arts Society Facebook group for more practice session videos like this one and many other wonderful resources from percussionists across the state.